Good morning, everyone. We are the Group 8, and we are going to tackle about the arrest, trial, and execution of our dear national hero, Dr. Jose Rizal.
Jose Rizal's arrest. In 1892, the La Liga Filipina was formed. It was on the same year, on July 6, that Rizal's arrest was ordered by Governor General Eulogio Despujol upon his return for being a subversive and for his alleged involvement in the rebellion, and was deported to Dapitan for 4 years. Jose Rizal's exile. It was in Dapitan where he practiced medicine, taught students, collected local flora and fauna samples, and offered advice to Pio Valenzuela for the Katipunan. As his exile ended in 1896, as the Philippine Revolution was starting, he was arranged to become a physician to Cuba on behalf of Spain, showing his so-called patriotic conduct. In September 3, his ship left Philippines for Spain, but he eventually landed in Spanish prison to be deported back to the Philippines. Jose Rizal's trial. In November 3, 1896, he arrived in the Philippines, and the interrogation began 12 days after. Three crimes accused to Rizal were rebellion, sedition, and illegal association. He stood in military court where he chose a close friend, Luis Taviel de Andrade, as his defense counsel. Although in papers his trial proceeded legally, it was quite obvious that it was done in haste. Next up, we have Jay Arca to report about Rizal's execution.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm going to tackle about the execution and the last day of our national hero, Dr. Jose Rizal. Rizal spent his last 24 hours in his death cell, where he received members of his family and writes his letter. The first one he made was given to his second brother, Ferdinand Blumentritt. He also gave his sister Trinidad an old petroleum lamp and whispered to her in English that there is something inside the lamp. Rizal was said to have married his Irish girlfriend according to Catholic rite in the very last hours of his life, after living with her for some time in the Pitan. They were previously married civilly. Despite all the valid pleadings, the military court vindicted as it voted for the sentence of death. Polavieja affirmed the decision of the court-martial for Rizal to be shot at 7 in the morning of December 30, 1896 at Bagumbayan Field. On the morning at 6:30 o'clock of December 30, 1896, Rizal sat on his walk from Fort Santiago to the Bagumbayan Square, the same place where the three priests had been killed in 1872, now commonly known or popularly known as Luneta Park, in the center of Manila. Rizal now was ready to face his ultimate death as he was seen as a man of peace and bravery. He wore a black woolen suit and a derby hat, and his arms were tied behind him. During the walk, he recalled his youth and his student days at the Ateneo and in Bagumbayan itself. The Spanish troops held back at the crowd while the artillery group stood on alert to prevent any attempt to rescue Rizal. Not knowing his brother Pasiano, who had joined the revolution forces, was said to have discouraged groups who might want to save Rizal since they would not be able to match Spanish firepower. The captain in charge of the execution instructed Rizal where to position himself to turn his back against the squad and face the sea. However, Rizal requested to face the firing squad as such position instructed was only taken by traitors and he was not one of them. The captain could not do anything for he was only following orders. Hence, failing to have his request granted, he asked to be shot at the back instead of the head so that he may at the end turn his head and body sidewise and fall with his face upward. The captain agreed. He also asked if he would like to kneel, but Rizal refused, nor did he agree to be blindfolded. A Jesuit priest now came running and asked Rizal to kiss the crucifix that he held. Rizal turned his back on the crucifix and thus against the firing squad. At exactly 7:03 a.m., Rizal shouted, "Consummatum est," before the shot ran out. The hero's life is now ended. In the background, we can hear Viva España, death to traitors. Rizal's family was not able to take his body. The military had secretly buried the body of Rizal at the Paco cemetery. Her sister Narcisa looked for the cadaver everywhere but could not find it. She passed by the unused Paco cemetery and saw through the open gate some civil guards. Finding this uncommon, she entered the cemetery and searched the place. She saw a grave with freshly turned earth and knew at once it was his brother's grave. With a little money, she asked the gravedigger to place a plaque on it with her brother's initial in reverse. That is RPJ, that stands for Rizal Potasio Jose. That afternoon, the books, letter, and the lamp or alcohol burner were delivered to Rizal's family. At the base of the alcohol burner, they found Rizal's last masterpiece entitled Mi Ultimo Adios, or in English, The Last Farewell. The copies were given to each family member and some are to Cavite insurgents. After the Americans had taken Manila, Narcisa requested the new government to grant her permission to exhume the body of his brother. They found out that the body was never placed in a coffin nor even wrapped by anything. Rizal's family had the possession of the body and the remains were instituted at the base of the Rizal Monument, which was erected at the center of Luneta. Rizal's death was an emotional event in our history as it produced a martyr and resulted in some form of social change or transformation in our lives as Filipinos. Rizal was put to death for subversion by the dominant political forces. He presented a sector of society which had begun to trouble and therefore constituted a real threat to the existing social order. And that would be all for our presentation of the arrest, trial, and execution of our dear national hero.